Hello, pre-calculus scholars. We are on to reviewing for your test you're going to take on block day. So the test is going to be, instead of over everything we've had in Unit 3 and Unit 4, which is the rational functions and everything, we are just going to focus on the conics. And so it's going to be very much the same length as what your review is for today. So short and sweet, which means you have to do better on it. You don't have as many chances to make errors because it won't be worth a lot of points. So kind of keep that in mind. So what we're going to do today is we're going to just work a couple problems. I'm going to pick up like the hardest problem for every single one of these on the homework that you have due for Monday at 8 a.m. So you're first supposed to be able to identify. So we're going to start with number 2. And basically it's going to be like the last like 2, 4, 6, and 8 that we're going to be doing. You want to first look at this general formula of this equation and decide which type of conic that it is. Well, remember we looked for the number of squared terms. There's 2, so that rules out parabolas. And then we look and realize that their coefficients are exactly the same. And they're both positive, which then means I'm going to have a circle. So we're going to set this up so that way we can use completing the square to find the general form of the circle. So remember, and you got to tell me the center and the radius and be able to graph it. So we group together our values. So we have our 9x squared plus 54x, and then we get plus 9y squared minus 36y, and we're going to equal a negative 17. The constant goes over. We look at our values here and we say, okay, what's in front of the x squared? A positive 9. So we factor out a 9 between those two terms. Make sure we got it here. So I got 9 times the quantity x squared plus 6x, and we're going to go plus blank. Doing the same thing here, I'm going to factor out a positive 9 from my y terms. And so I get here 9 times quantity y squared minus 4y plus blank. And then we're going to go negative 17 plus blank plus blank. All right, I'm going to move that a little bit over, so it will see it a little bit easier. Okay, so with this, my friends, I don't know if it moved too much. Oh well. So with it, we're now going to do our completing the square. So we're going to divide by 6 by 2, which gives us 9. This is probably not going to let me move it over or not. I'm trying to move it. Oh well. So we go 9. But we got to go 9 times 9. So we're really adding 81 to our other side when we work with it. And then we do the same thing here. We have a negative 4. We square it. And then we ended up getting here negative 4 divided by 2, which is negative 2. We square it. We get 4. We go 4 times 9, which is going to be 36. And so we get here, my friends, we get 9 times the quantity x plus 3 squared plus 9 times the quantity y minus 2 squared. And we got negative 17 plus 81 plus 36. That is going to end up being, I think it's 117 minus 17. So that's going to end up giving us 100. But we can divide everything by 9 because we don't have any terms in front of that. So we get here the quantity x plus 3 squared. I'm noticing my computer is getting really hot right now. All right. Plus, what do we get here? The quantity y minus 2 squared equals 100 over 9. So then we're going to sit here. And we got to pull out the center and the radius. So our center is going to be a negative 3, positive 2, and our radius is the square root of 100 over 9, which is going to be 10 over 3. And so that's 3 1/3. So those are the two pieces of information you have, plus you have to have your standard form. So let's graph this rather quickly. So we're over here at negative 3, positive 2, which is right here. And then we have to go about 3 1/3 every direction, top, down, right, left. So we go over, over, and then over 3, 1, 2, 3. Make sure I got it. And then you draw in your circle. Guys, remember with circles, instead of dividing what's on the right hand side, we divide to make sure the coefficients go away when we're doing completing the square. Okay, let's do number 4 for parabolas. When we're working with this one, how do I know this is a parabola, my friends? Well, the reason why I know it's a parabola is because it only has one squared term. And it's the x being squared, which tells me we're going to either open up or open down. So it's pretty easy with this one. So with this, let's go ahead and let's move stuff around. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go this way. And the reason why I'm doing that is I can move the y over to the other side in our constant. So I'm going to move here. I'm going to go negative 8y minus 9 is equal to x squared minus 2x. Plus blank. So remember, we're really, actually I wanted to move that over a little bit so I can go negative 8y plus 9, minus 9 plus blank. And we do the completing the square process. So we go negative 2 divided by 2. What does that give us? A negative 1. Negative 1 squared is a positive 1. So we add it to both sides. So now we get a negative 8y. I don't know why it's doing this, guys. It's really weird. It's like my technology has quit working all of a sudden. All right, so minus 8 equals the quantity x minus 1 squared. Then go ahead and add 8 to both sides. So we get the quantity x minus 1 squared plus 8. And then you have to get y by itself, so I can divide everything by a negative 8. So what does that really give us? Well, that gives us y equals a negative 1/8 times the quantity x minus 1 squared minus 1. So this is a parabola. So what are the three key pieces of I can't talk. 3 key pieces of info you have to be able to pull out. First of all, you have to pull out the vertex. So our vertex for this one is going to be a 1, negative 1. So I'm over here at 1, negative 1. I know it's opening down because it's a negative 1/8. So I'm going to draw it like this, because what that allows me to do is gives me an idea where my focus is going to be with this. So we have to find C next so we can find our focus. So we go a negative 1/8 is equal to 1 over 4c. So we cross multiply. Negative, don't know why it's doing this, negative 4c is equal to a positive 8. C is going to be a negative 2. Now, the negative tells us that we're opening down, but remember, we go to the vertex and we know that the focus is on the inside. So that means we're going to go down 2. So right here, we're going to go down 2. And this point right here is our focus. So our focus is going to end up being at 1, negative 3. Now, Directrix is in the opposite direction. It goes up 2. So our Directrix is going to be our line, and it is a horizontal line, so it's y equals, and we just had to add 2 up. Well, we land at a positive 1, so we get y is equal to 1 for this parabola. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense with that one, and it was very easy for us to do. Okay, so let's go do an ellipse problem here. I'm looking at either one of these, and you know which one actually looks a little bit grosser? Number 15. Now, why do I know this is an ellipse? Well, first of all, I'm looking here. I have 2 terms. They're both squared. With that terms, they're also both the same sign. They're both positive, so that lets me know they're ellipses. So different coefficients but the same sign are going to be ellipses. If they're same coefficients, same signs, you know that's going to end up being, as I throw this around, going to be a circle. So let's work this one together. So with this, we're going to do completing the square twice. A nice thing is they already grouped together our variables. We just have to move over a negative 225 to make it negative. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to go 16x squared minus 96x plus 9y squared minus 90y equals negative 225. All right, so we look at the first two. You factor out what's going to make the coefficient in front of your x squared 1. So this is going to be a positive 16 here. So I got to go 16 times the quantity x squared minus 6x plus blank. Factor out a 9 for the y's, and I get y squared minus 10y plus blank equals a negative 225 plus blank, because we're doing it 2 times here because we're completing the square twice. So then I look at my x's. Once again, divide by, 2. Get a negative 3, square it, get 9. 16 times 9 though, got to make sure you remember that. That's going to give us 144. Then we got to take the negative 10, divide that by 2, that's a negative 5, square it, it's 25, and that's 225. So when we simplify, on the right I get 144. On the left I get 16 times the quantity x minus 3 squared plus 9 times quantity y minus 5 squared. All right, then we have to sit there because standard form with ellipses and hyperbolas, they're equal to 1. So we divide everything by 144. So remember with circles, we divided what was by the coefficients to equal the radius. So a little bit different practice on this one. I don't like the fact that looks like a 9, so forgive me. And then this is what we get. We get x minus 3 squared all over 9 plus the quantity y minus 5 squared over 16 is equal to 1. Now, looking at this, a squared is bigger. So that means I know, since it's under the y, we're going to stretch our ellipse vertically. So that helps me pull out the stuff so I can graph it really quick. All right, and I know b squared is going to equal 9. All right, so let's pull out the key information that you have to have. You have to know the center of the ellipse. So our center, see if it's going to work yet today. Here we go. Yep, here we go. Our center is at 3, 5. So I go over here to 3, 5. Okay, and then we have to find the vertices. Well, vertices we use with A, and remember this is stretching, so that means I'm really going to be putting my foci and my vertices on that what's called the major axis. So here we know A is going to equal 4, so we got to go up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 is a vertex, and we go down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So my vertices are going to be at 3, 9, and at 3, what do we got here? 1. And I'm just getting my Zoom reminder that I have a meeting in just a few minutes. All right, so then we have our focus. That's going to be using with C. So we get here, remember, C squared equals A squared minus B squared. So that gives us 16 minus 9, which is 7. And then we take the square root of that. So C is the square root of 7. So I got to add, and actually I'm going to put a plus or minus here because I got to go up and down 7. So the square root of 7 is like 2.6-ish or so. So we're going to go like here's the focus. And then we know our other one is a focus here. But how can I quickly show that? Remember that changes my y. So I just got to go back to my center. And I'm going to be working with those. All right, so let's finish graphing this. Well, to graph it, I need to know B. Well, B is equal to 3. That gives me my minor axis. So I got to go over 3 here. I got 3 here. And then we just draw in our ellipse. And hopefully it doesn't look as bad as mine. Okay, well, I have to pause the video here so I can do my Zoom meeting. But guys, I will get back with you pretty soon. Hi, my friends. I put us on pause here because I actually had a Zoom meeting for third period, but I wanted to show you something. The answer key is not really awesome. I love it for once that I'm not the one who made the answer key, so I can say this. For number 7, you will notice the box is not drawn really well. They did not show the B very well on this. So just know that it's going to be off, but if you can understand where the vertice is, how to draw asymptotes and stuff, you're going to be okay. So B is a 2 root 2, which is like 2.6 or something like that. 2.8, and so it makes it really wide. So just understand it is off on the answer key. Okay, now let's do the last one I want to do with you together, and it is for the hyperbola example here. With it, the key thing that people miss is when they're working with it and doing completing the square, realizing that one of the terms is negative and one of them is positive. So let's first of all remember, how do I know that this is a hyperbola? And the reason why I know it's a hyperbola is I have 2 squared terms, one's positive, one's negative, hyperbola. Then we need to do our completing the square with it. So there is no other x squared term, so we're going to leave that one alone. But then I have my negative y squared plus 36y, and we're going to move the 72 over because we always put the constant on the other side. And then we are realizing we only have to worry about the completing the square once with the y terms. Well, remember, I need a positive 1 in front of y squared, which means I have to factor out a negative 9 from both terms. So I get x squared minus 9 times the quantity y squared minus 4y plus blank is equal to 72 plus blank. Notice change of signs. All right, right here and here. Now, do your completing the square like normal. Negative 4 divided by 2 is a negative 2. Negative 2 squared is a positive 4. Then you go negative 9 times a positive 4, which is a negative 36. So we now write it. So we go x squared minus 9 times the quantity y minus 2 squared is equal to 36. Now we're changing this. Oh, by the way, I forgot to write that's a hyperbola on the top. Hello. Sorry. Then we need to remember that hyperbolas and ellipses are equal to 1 in standard form. So we divide by 36, divide by 36. So we get x squared over 36 minus the quantity y minus 2 squared all over 4, which is going to be equal to 1. So here's our standard form. Then we have to pull out the key pieces of information. Remember, I need to know the center. In that case, it's going to be 0, 2, and then we need to find the 2 vertices. Now remember, the vertices go on what's called the major transverse axis. It is letting me know, since a squared is always underneath the positive, it's under x squared, we're opening to the left and to the right. So we go to our center at 0, 2, and then I know my vertices are going to be going on this direction, left and right. But to do that, we use A. A is always used for our vertices when we're working with this. So with this one, we got a squared is equal to 36, so we know a is a plus or minus 6. So I go to my center and I go over 6 to the right, and I got to go 6 to the left because, again, we know we're opening left, right. So what are my 2 vertices? Well, I got negative 6, 2, and I have 6, positive 2. So those are my center and vertices. Now remember, how do we graph this? Well, we have to use B. So we got b squared equals 4, so we know b is going to be plus or minus 2, so that means I got to go up 2 and down 2, and then we make our box that go through the vertices and the points that B are formed. And then we draw in your lovely asymptotes through the diagonals. And then we draw our 2 hyperbolas, touching our vertex, going to the left, touching our vertex, and going to the right. There you have your hyperbola. All right, my friends, thank you so much for watching this video. Again, you didn't have to if you didn't need help on any of the problems, but hopefully this helped.